Aren't you a little short for a stormtrooper?
What's up, nerds? Welcome to another episode of the Multiverse Report. We are recapping the week's nerdy news from Warner Brothers Discovery to Amazon Prime and everywhere in between. Those locations will make sense momentarily. My name is Mike Gibson. With me, as always, is Steve Haller. What's up, Steve?
Free 2-day delivery on all your Warner Brothers digital needs, apparently.
Apparently, yeah. So, if this is the first episode that you are watching and or listening to, you should know that in your podcast feed or on your YouTube channel, whatever, there are two additional episodes that we've just recorded before this one. One recapping the new trailer for Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. And boy, we had some stuff to say about that title. And then also for Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, the trailer for that. So scroll back and listen to us talk about those things, especially if you're interested in listening or seeing an alarm go off on my phone and me unable to turn it off for way too long. Stick around to the end to find out the twist ending of why I couldn't turn it off. I don't remember even which one that was on. Was that on Indy? It was on Indy, right?
Yeah, that was on the Indy one.
Yeah, it was on the Indiana Jones one. Okay, yeah. So tune in for that. Anyway, so because those were kind of the two big nerd news drops we got this week, were those two trailers. We got a couple other trailers too. We're going to talk about one of them at least. This episode might be a little on the lighter side, but we've said that before, and we've still talked for over an hour, so who knows? But again, as we do much too often lately, I feel like on this show, we're starting off with a rest in peace section. One for Tim Kennedy, an artist for Archie Comics, passed away this week. Kennedy began working on Archie Comics in 1989 and was doing so up until his death, I believe. I didn't read anything about him having retired or anything. I think he was still an active artist. Archie Comics is not something that we talk about too much on this show, Steve. I have never read an Archie comic. Have you ever read an Archie comic?
Like the actual classic Archie.
Anything, classic or modern, they're still coming out. They're coming out now.
Wow, I did not realize that. I thought I thought they were like an umbrella.
No, man.
I actually have way back, like when I was a kid, I definitely read some.
You know what? I think you're right. I think I did too.
Yeah, definitely not in modern times. Well,
from what I've recently learned about Archie Comics is that they shockingly can get pretty wild, referencing like other realities or taking place in other realities, or bringing in kind of modern twists, or just doing much more interesting stuff than you would think of a typical Archie book. But I think they kind of know what they are, and they kind of lean into it in a way that subverts it.
Gotcha.
So anyway,
and they did that Riverdale,
and
show
they've been
too,
being.
right?
What's that?
Riverdale on CW.
Yes,
there.
Riverdale is a gritty teen drama interpretation of Archie Comics, which I believe Tim Kennedy, from the article that I read about his life today, actually drew one of these multiverse Archie crossovers, bringing in the gritty versions of the Riverdale cast, Riverdale teens, to meet the classic Archie characters, which I'm sure was hilarious and wild. And Archie Comics has been around for a long time, since like the 50s or 60s, and having Tim starting in 1989 and still working on Archie Comics is a long time. So rest in peace, Tim Kennedy, artist for Archie Comics. Also, we lost Aline Kominsky-Crumb, a incredibly legendary underground comics artist, known for her very raw, very autobiographical, very confessional comic strips. She passed away this week from pancreatic cancer. She, again, was like a legend of like the independent comic strips scene. She was married to R. Crumb, another legendary comic artist, kind of like subgenre, very underground kind of stuff. If you knew them, you loved them, and you loved them or if you knew her, you loved her, and you loved her for her. Again, just like not being, fearlessness, I guess, fearlessness of subject matter, fearlessness of confessing personal either problems or troubles or hangups that somebody might have. I don't know. So a huge loss to the underground comics community. And last but not least, 3 RIPs this week, which is, sadly, I think we had 3 RIPs last week or the week before with Kevin Conroy and 2 other comic artists. But I just learned right before we recorded this, and this isn't necessarily nerd related, but it is related to me and my youth and my heart. So I wanted to shout out, shout out is a tacky way to say this, but I wanted to
Acknowledge.
Show some love to Bob McGrath. Bob McGrath, who you may know as being Bob from
Right.
Sesame Street.
I was going to say,
if you are,
I never knew his last name was McGrath. It was just Bob because, well, he was Bob.
Yeah. If you are my age or Steve's age or, somewhere in that ballpark, you definitely watched Sesame Street growing up. And Bob was definitely there. And he was there until maybe 10 years ago or so, or less than when
2016.
5-10 years ago.
Was his
2016,
last,
when HBO bought it, Sesame Street, and made it a half hour and fired everybody after saying that they weren't going to change anything about the show.
Yep.
They changed a ton about it.
He did come back for the 50th anniversary, but that 2016 was his last recurring role.
Yeah. And man, I always loved him. When I was a kid, he was my favorite non-Muppet cast member. I still watch him. I don't know. Every year, there's many years. We're in December right now. We're in the Christmas season. There are many years where I watch the Sesame Street Christmas special, the original one that I watched when I was a kid, or I watched with my son. He's a big part of that too, and it kind of takes me back to my childhood. He was always just such a and everybody on that show, you have to be very open and very welcoming and very friendly.
Oh yeah.
And I just always saw him as just this wonderful spirit. And from all reports, he was that in real life as well. And he was 90 years old. So, truly a long and wonderful life, lived, a lot of joy and happiness brought to just people all over the world. I feel like anyone who watched, how many kids our age watch Sesame Street? 90% of them?
I was going to say,
probably, if they owned a television.
Most of them,
yeah. I think about how I wish my son watched more Sesame Street.
Yeah.
But there's other options now. When I was a kid, that was it. Really.
Right. It was that or
there wasn't
the non-educational cartoons.
Exactly.
Hanna-Barbera.
Yeah, for stuff that for stuff that my parents would let me watch, it was going to be Sesame Street or nothing else. And now there's a million other educational programs and things, that my son can watch, so he chooses those instead of Sesame Street. It's not like he doesn't like Sesame Street, but it's never his number one choice. It was the only choice, and it was always my number one choice when I was a kid.
It's no Storybots, which are amazing.
My son is crazy into Storybots right now, which I acknowledge is great. It's not like I'm sitting there mad at Storybots because it's not Sesame Street, but anyway, we're getting away from it. But all love and respect to Bob McGrath for all that he did for me as a child and for many kids around the world. So rest in peace, Tim Kennedy, Aline Kominsky-Crumb, and Bob McGrath. Heroes from the Multiverse Report. Moving into some actual news. Again, not a ton of heavy hitting stuff other than those 2 trailers that dropped. And I feel like those 2 trailers dropped and they were like, yeah, that's all we need to do this week.
Right.
We don't need to really announce anything else.
Well, we'll
those
call
are
it
huge
there.
trailers for Indiana Jones 5. Yeah. But this is kind of in line with some things we've been talking about lately regarding Warner Brothers Discovery. Steve, I'll be interested to see what you think of this, because I have an opinion on it as well. Well, Warner Brothers Discovery apparently is close to making a deal with Amazon Prime for streaming animated DC content. Now, this is a reference to our intro, where I said from Warner Bros. Discovery to Amazon Prime. Apparently, the head of Warner Bros. TV, Channing Dungey, I think her name is, she spoke to Variety this week, and she said, one of the interesting things that's exciting for me at this moment is the approach of the previous management was more like everything has to stay in-house. We don't want anything to go outside. David Zaslav has been much more open to exploring all of our animated IP and being able to do it on different platforms. Certainly, HBO Max is going to be our first stop, but we're already in the process of closing a big deal with Amazon that's going to feature some of our DC-branded content in animation. So she's referencing maybe the Disney Plus model, where we're Disney Plus, this is our streaming service. Everything we own, we're going to bring in-house. If you want to watch it, you got to watch it on Disney Plus. Disney movies, Pixar movies, Marvel movies, Star Wars movies, it's all in one place. And originally, that was a plan with HBO Max. DC, Cartoon Network, Studio Ghibli, all these other things that are owned by Warner Brothers, all going to be under one roof, HBO Max.
Right.
That apparently is not the strategy of David Zaslav, as we've known, because he's just letting animated Batman shows go to another network. He's letting J.J. Abrams pitch Justice League Dark shows to other networks, like yow.
Right.
So he clearly doesn't care about keeping everything under one roof. He also doesn't care about animation, as we know that they laid off a lot of their animation staff. They merged Warner Brothers Animation with Cartoon Network, which they own. So he's not a big animation guy. Now he's letting more animation escape HBO Max. I can see positives in this, and I can see negatives in this. Steve, what do you think? What's off the top of your head?
My brain just says, why? Like, when you already have the streaming service and the infrastructure there,
Right.
Why? Like, you own the IP. You're not going to make a return on your investment beyond what you would just putting it on your service, or I can't imagine. You can pitch, was it Zaslav? No, I'm confusing my IPs. That was Chapek before he was fired, saying that kids or adults don't want to watch animation.
Don't like animation, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So that changes me back.
I wouldn't. Chapek said that. I don't know that David Zaslav thinks much differently than that. I feel like he might be on the same board as like an older dude who doesn't understand that adults watch animation all the time. All the time.
Oh, yeah.
Especially this DC stuff they're talking about. If they're it says DC branded content in animation. That could be a lot of stuff. That could be stuff like, DC Superhero Girls or Teen Titans Go, which are made for younger audiences. Or it could be Batman the Cape Crusader, which is the show that they let go to pitch to other streamers. It could be or it could be like the very R-rated DC direct-to video films that they make.
Right.
Which are, they use language. They're very violent. People die horribly in them. So I don't know really what they're talking about. It could be any of those things or it could be all of those things. And I definitely see what you're saying, Steve, as like a why. Why you're, like we talked about when they said they're letting JJ pitch Justice League Dark or Bruce Timm take the Batman show somewhere else. Like, why? You own this stuff. Make them come to you if they want to see it. Make them buy HBO Max. But I also see having everything in one place. I don't know. If you just love Star Wars, say someone just loves Star Wars and they never watch Pixar movies, they never watch Disney animated movies, maybe they like some Marvel stuff, but they're not super into it. They just really like Star Wars.
Yeah.
Is it worth them paying whatever it is a month for Disney Plus versus just buying all those movies on Blu-ray and then watching them and then they never have to, what is keeping their Disney Plus subscription other than Star Wars stuff?
Right.
Maybe you just own Amazon Prime for the free shipping and you don't have every other streaming service, you can still watch a Batman cartoon. or you can still watch a Justice League cartoon on Amazon Prime. You know what I mean? Like, they are making their IP more available by having it on other platforms. You know, and I mean, Disney is huge. Disney has a brand that is bigger than any other brand. They're bigger than Warner Brothers. They're bigger than Amazon Prime. They're bigger than like Paramount or whatever. You know, their studio has like a streaming service. But I see the positive in having your IP more available on a wider scale. I get that because, like, oh, I watched this cool Superman show on Amazon Prime. Where can I get other Superman stuff? Oh, HBO Max. I'm going to sign up for that. Or, oh, there's a new Superman movie coming out. I don't have HBO Max, but I saw this cool Superman thing, so now I want to go see that movie. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I guess I could get that to a degree. My Marvel brain immediately goes back to the 90s when Promuter was gutting everything and just selling everything off to everybody. And it's like, why? Especially with something like DC where you have the infrastructure. Like, I get why Marvel did it back then, as dumb as it was, because they were bleeding money. Like, it was just hemorrhaging. And they needed to find some way to, hey, if you license this, then you can pay us money type thing.
Right.
With DC, you have an established brand, you have an established streaming platform, you have an established everything. Is there the need? And I guess if they do it in a targeted manner, I could see it working out. But if they don't, and it's just this broad brush, like start farming things out to everyone, then it could be a problem for them.
Yeah, you're right. And here's my question, does it throw a monkey wrench into whatever plans James Gunn and Peter Safran have for the DC universe? Because as we know, they said that the two of them are in charge of content and they said they want to tell one big story. They're talking about one continuity, building one continuity between films, TV, video games, and I'm pretty sure they said animation.
Right.
Also,
I mean, if they're doing video games, you would assume that's in there.
Yeah. So I can't imagine that. I mean, clearly, I'm sure they've been having talks with Amazon Prime about this deal for a while. I can't imagine that no one told James Gunn that they were doing this. Like, he knows about this.
Right.
But you got to wonder, does it put a wrench in his plans, or does it make it harder for him to execute this story that they want to tell? Obviously, not everything's going to be like so continuity driven. I don't think that you have to have seen everything else. Who knows? I guess I don't know what their plan is. Nobody does, except the two of them until, I don't know, hopefully soon. I'm dying to know what their plan is. But more so than that, this is kind of a bigger, just industry question. Channing Dungey went on to say, talking about in general their idea of how to utilize HBO Max and streaming versus theatrical versus whatever. She said, I think about it as, quote, the great Netflix correction that happened at the beginning of this year, where now people are looking differently at what defines success. It's not just about subscribers, for example. And I think the cost of productions, people are taking a much harder look at them than they had before. We were in a little bit of a spending bubble for a while, and I think it's good. I think things are settling back down in ways that are helpful and more productive. So this is like another, I feel like we've seen a couple stories lately about corporations or brands, whatever, kind of realizing, does it really make sense to be putting this much money into a streaming service that only gets us $10 a month or whatever, versus we could make this into a thing that you have to buy or you have to go see in the theater, which will make us millions of dollars.
Right.
So like, and I think we talked about this in the aftermath of the Batgirl cancellation, like, is Warner Brothers kind of leading the charge away from streaming back to a theatrical experience, or like a regular? Is there even a thing as regular TV anymore? Like, I think it's all on streamers, but they seem to be, based on things that David Zaslav has said, how he wants to focus on theatrical, and based on this quote it seems like they don't necessarily want to just be pumping money into streaming content for the sake of saying they have streaming content. They want to make sure that they are doing something that is successful. And like she mentions, like a spending bubble, like, yeah, like Netflix is in a position where they don't have to release their numbers necessarily, which is crazy to me, but you never really know how successful a streaming show is unless they want to tell you, you know?
Right.
I don't
Yeah,
know, it's
there's
wild.
no.
You spent how much money on this versus if it was a movie, you could have made $100 million, but how many subscribers did you get for, Godzilla versus Kong or whatever,
Right. More on that later.
More on that later.
But yeah, I mean, the whole situation and the whole we're coming full circle on the streaming platforms. Like our generation all moved to streaming to get the hell away from advertisements and for on demand. Like, I don't want to flip through 8,000 channels. I want to watch what I want to watch, and that's it.
Yeah, I've been doing this all my life. You're telling me I don't have to watch commercials anymore?
Right.
Sign me up. Yeah.
Yeah, they made it easier than DVRing it and just skipping the commercials.
Right. Yeah.
But like, you go from that to now, anything I watch on Hulu, I've got to watch with ads or pay a boatload more of money a month.
Yeah.
So everything's going full circle. Streaming is becoming cable again, and then we'll find out what the next iteration is, and then the big companies will be slow to adopt, and we'll be right back in the same situation we are now.
Yeah. I mean, even like something where a lot of streamers other than Netflix, I mean, Netflix is realizing it, but they're too chicken to go back on it, are kind of realizing that the binge model isn't great. It doesn't keep, you make more money if you have a show that causes a weekly conversation versus just binging it all at once. People forget about it in a day.
Right. It worked when they were the only game in town.
Exactly. It worked when they were the only game in town. Yes. Now they're definitely not.
Right. Now everybody else, the cultural zeitgeist is like shifted, and everyone else is in the same boat you are. So.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's hard for Netflix to compete when they don't, I mean, we're talking about brands like Disney and Warner Brothers that own IP that people have been watching for their entire lives. And yeah, Stranger Things is great, but it's not in my heart the way that Superman is, or Captain America is, or Luke Skywalker is, or Batman is. Like that's you can't compete with that. You can't compete with that.
No,
so
you really
anyway,
can't.
I just thought that was interesting. Was that?
You really can't. And their whole model, like even when they were a DVD delivery service, because remember back in the day, that's what they were.
I think they still do that.
Really?
If you want them, I think they still do that. Yeah.
That's awesome. I may someday just do that for the hell of it, because that'd be great. But like, even doing that it was out of the box. And then they shifted to streaming, and everybody was like, is this going to work? And then they became the biggest thing since sliced bread in streaming.
Yep.
And then they never pivoted on this last turn.
I know.
So like, how do you keep up with the Joneses? You got to keep changing, keeping on.
Yeah. I mean, they should have I feel like early on, they should have invested heavily in an existing IP before like Disney brought it. I don't know. They should have bought something,
right.
I mean, like Disney bought Star Wars, Disney bought Marvel. Those are big acquisitions. Netflix could have bought, before the Fox merger, Netflix, I don't know, could they have bought Alien? I don't know. Could they have bought the Muppets from Disney?
Right.
I don't know. Could they have bought something that people
could've-
cared about? Could they have bought
Sesame
Back
Street.
to the Future? Yeah. There's other stuff out there that people are paying to watch. But I don't know. Not on Netflix.
Right.
So we'll see. I mean, they got Sandman now, which is wild that HBO Max didn't hold on to Sandman, but whatever.
Yeah, kind of crazy there, but
yeah.
I mean, we heard firsthand that it's pretty much it was pretty much a production cost thing, because that show costs a boatload of money to produce.
Yes, it sure did. But hey, season 2. Whee! The other piece of DC news we got this week, not a ton of news, but we got a new teaser poster, a first official poster for Blue Beetle, which again confirms that it is going to be released theatrically this summer. And Steve, I don't know if there's another movie in the world that has had to just like convince audiences so hard that yes, it is going to be in theaters. Like it just keeps having to reiterate it's a theatrical release. It's a theatrical release. Just because Batgirl got canceled and everyone was like, "Oh, Blue Beetle's not going to make it. Blue Beetle's going to go. Blue Beetle's going to go." And I feel like every time I see anything about it, theatrically, really, like they're just really, it's still coming out. It's still happening.
Right.
Like no other movie in the history of the world has had to tell us so hard that it's going to be in theaters. But the poster is a very simplistic one. It doesn't even show any characters. It just shows the classic Blue Beetle scarab, which will attach itself to Jaime Reyes and make him a whole super cool, shiny beetle costume. It looks shiny. It looks bright. It looks very kind of like 80s kind of like lighting on it, which is something that we kind of saw in the, I think we saw maybe some production art for Blue Beetle for like a DC fandom or something that kind of looked like that, or the title card, kind of looked like that.
Yep.
And the another cool thing was that it was shared for the first time on social media, not by DC, but by James Gunn. His personal account was the first one to reveal the poster. And I gotta tell you, like, I mean, I like James Gunn in general, but I really like just having a voice for DC films, the way that Kevin Feige, like, not even in the same way that Kevin Feige does. Like Kevin Feige every once in a while gets up on a stage in front of people and presents a whole slate,
Yep.
But he's not super active on like social media or anything, but James Gunn is. And it's cool to have a defining brand voice say like, hey, this movie's coming out, and someone that's responding to fans on Twitter and interacting with people like, hey, we're not doing that, we're doing this. He also this past week he wrote making plans and tweeted a section of the cover of this graphic novel called Kingdom Come. It's a famous DC story. And everyone immediately like freaked out, like they're doing Kingdom Come. No, he tweeted it because the cover of it is Superman and a bunch of other heroes standing around a table looking like they're having some kind of like intense conversation. And he's making plans with the DC universe, and it looks like these characters are making plans. I don't think they're adapting Kingdom Come. They need to make 10 years of movies before they can adapt Kingdom Come accurately. But it's just like really refreshing as a DC fan to have a voice of the brand just kind of be out there and be talking about it, and someone that is clearly a fan of the material at the same time. So that was just really cool.
No, and that seems there's enough good stories to tell in DC that having Gunn in that situation is going to be great.
Yeah.
Like having some rudder for this it's something that's been needed for a long time.
Yeah, I agree. Did you have a chance to check out the poster?
Yeah.
That we're talking about, the Blue Beetle poster? What do you think? Does it make you, I know you're not like super familiar with the character.
No.
Does this sway you either way, or like I mean, it's a very simplistic poster, but
it is, but it's kind of translated to Marvel side. The poster looks like Iron Man meets Moon Knight.
Sure. Yeah. I see that. It is kind of Iron Man-y, to be honest with you.
It has that look to it, and it really, whatever works. I don't know if that's what they're going for. Or...
It is very much Iron Man meets Moon Knight, now that I'm thinking about it, because it's like the scarab attaches itself to Jaime and creates this like alien tech costume.
Yep.
So it's kind of like, and the scarab talks to him. He's the only one that can hear it, but he hears it in his brain, So it's kind of like
just
Moon
like
Knight maybe talking to himself, or Iron Man talking to his AI, but also gets this like superpowered suit out of nowhere because it's like attached to his back. So yeah, for sure. And he's a kid, so there's also like some Spider-Man rolled in there too. I think I hope this movie's good.
Yeah.
I hope this movie's good. And from what I know about it, it seems like, again, like I was talking about with, oh, sorry. I'm forgetting what episode we talked about what in, but when we were talking about the Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 trailer, part of the reason I'm excited for that is James Gunn being an auteur director that writes it and has a vision and like really knows what they're going for. I kind of get that same vibe from the filmmakers of Blue Beetle when I read quotes from them, or I see things that they're either referencing or doing. When they showed those like set photos of the costume, I was like, wow, they get this character because that looks perfect. This poster looks great. There's an energy to it, and I'm excited about it. So,
Nice.
yeah, Blue Beetle this summer. Can't wait.
Yeah, and that's
All right.
God. There's so much content coming out. I just randomly was I was like poking around and found like the MCU slate coming up, where it's just like Quantumania, Guardians, Marvels, New World Order, Thunderbolts, Blade, Deadpool 3, Fantastic Four, the 2 Avengers movies, and that's with all the TV stuff in between.
Yep, I know. 2003 is going to be an active year. I know I just mentioned this on either the Indiana Jones trailer review or the Guardians trailer review. There's going to be a lot of stuff coming out in 2003 or 2023.
Yep.
Because not only are we getting our normal slew of Marvel stuff, we're also getting 4 DC movies and however many other, whatever, Marvel shows, Star Wars shows, whatever. Like it's going to be a busy year for you and me, my friend.
Oh yeah. Well, and then like in that Marvel slate, the TV shows, there's a bunch of them, but it's also including stuff like Daredevil Born Again and Loki season 2 and Secret Invasion.
Right.
Like
lots of stuff.
Secret Invasion, there's many implications around Secret Invasion. Like it's not just something you take lightly and it's just thrown in here.
And that trailer looked
so
great.
Much
the trailer for that looked really good.
Yeah. So
yeah.
Oh, and Across the Spider-Verse too.
Oh my God, yes. Yeah.
And Craven.
So yeah, stay tuned in a couple weeks.
Craven is 23. Craven screeners have been out. Apparently, it's not as bad.
Really?
As,
man, I hope it's good. I would love for it to be good. Imagine it being good.
No,
God,
I actually can't imagine it being good.
I know. Neither can I. But how great would it be if it was good?
Yeah.
It'd be
yeah,
so
no.
great. What a shock.
Yeah,
well, stay tuned in a couple weeks for our end of year wrap-up show. I think last year we did like a top 3 from movies, TV, at least, I think, from each
Something
one.
like that.
And then we also talked about what's coming out next year. That list is going to be long. Going to be long this year. So stay tuned for that. Moving from DC into Star Wars, boy, let the speculation begin. Daisey Ridley, Rey Skywalker herself, was at Lucasfilm headquarters this past week, posted about it on her Instagram stories.
Dun, dun.
What's that?
I said dun dun dun.
Dun dun dun. She posted a caption on her story as well, saying it was that she was indeed at Lucasfilm, but it was, quote, nothing saucy, and that she was just there for lunch. But come on. There's no way that Daisey Ridley is having lunch at Lucasfilm, and at no point are they talking about Rey and Star Wars. Like, that comes up at some point. At some point, someone talks to her about, so, what are we doing here?
Yeah. You ready to do this again? Yeah, let's do this again.
Yeah.
Do you like money?
How about...
Okay, we'll give you money.
Someone definitely slid a number across the table slowly during that lunch.
It was just lunch.
And she says it was just lunch, but who knows? And I mean, speculation being what it is, we just recently reported a couple weeks ago that the Star Wars movie being co-written by David Lindelof and directed by a woman whose name I do not remember right now. We know that movie takes place after the events of Rise of Skywalker. Is that movie the start of a new trilogy? Does it involve Rey? It could. It very much could. She could be a side character. She could be the main character. Who knows? I don't know. Steve, how much do you want to see Daisey Ridley return as Rey?
I mean, if they're going to bring Daisy Ridley back, it's a absolute 100. Like,
Yeah.
she did great as the character, and it's a solid character, and I would love to see them flesh it out. But part of me also wants just a hard break from anything that says Skywalker near it for at least a bit. I mean, yes, we've had a dearth of movies. We've had a lot of content that is still very tied to the Skywalker saga.
Right.
So it's like, I don't know. I'm half and half, especially after the taste of something fresh like Andor. Just like it's so right there in your face.
Yeah, like, I think I've said before. Maybe it was on an Andor review episode, but I'll say it here on the main feed that what I would love for somebody like a Tony Gilroy, the showrunner of Andor, to write the next Rey story, or Finn and Poe, or Rose, or whatever. Like, I would love to hit for that, because he would take just those characters and just write a good story,
right,
and not involve all the lore and the Skywalker-y stuff from the previous 3 trilogies that they had to do in the sequel trilogy or whatever. They had to reference those things because they were tying all this stuff up, or they felt they had to reference all those things because they were tying it up. But I would love, like, somebody just take Rey as a character and just write a good story with her. Like, all I need is her to be the main character, or a character in it. It doesn't have to be, and I feel like that's a good possibility, because as mixed as people are on the sequel trilogy, and as much as you and I didn't really like Rise of Skywalker very much, it did kind of wrap up all of that stuff. Like, there's not too much to dredge from that original trilogy or the prequel trilogy anymore. Like, they kind of tied all those knots right up. I mean,
they also tied them up. They tied Palpatine up pretty well at the end of Return of the Jedi. How'd that work out?
You know what, Steve? They did, but I would say that it was a dumb decision to bring him back. So if they want to keep making dumb decisions, then sure, they can do that. But they can also move forward in a smart way and leave all that shit behind, which I'm hoping that they do. Because I think if someone just wants to write the beginning of a new trilogy and raise the main character, it doesn't have to reference all that lore. It can only reference it in, like, oh, her last name's Skywalker? Yeah, she took it because she was influenced by her mentor or something. Whatever. Reference it, but it doesn't have to be a main plot point. Like, all the main plot points from the sequel trilogy came from the prequels and the original trilogy, more or less. And they can just start something new. But you can start something new with a character that we already know and we already like. Rey, Finn, Poe, Rose, whatever. Yeah. I say like because I like them. I know a lot of people hate all 4 of those characters, but I'm not one of them. I'm one that likes all of them. So,
if you somehow hate all 4 of those characters, like, I hate those movies not for the characters, but for the movies themselves.
Yeah. Yes.
Well, the movie, in all honesty.
I was gonna say I only hate one of those movies.
Yeah, it's
yeah.
Like, Last Jedi is up there for me, and Force Awakens is right in the middle of the pack somewhere.
Yeah, I love Force Awakens. I'm the opposite of you. I love Force Awakens. Last Jedi is, I'm 50-50 on Last Jedi, but Rise of Skywalker is low for me. So
we can always agree on that.
Anyway. Yep, we can always agree on that. Someday we'll debate our Star Wars rankings, but
yeah, let's shift to something that we know we both like.
Yeah, Mandalorian.
I think he was pretty good.
I think it's pretty good. I like that show quite a bit. And now we know that season 3 is officially going to be coming out on March 1st, 2023. Originally, they were saying February. Now we know, not quite February, March 1st, the return of Din Djarin and Grogu. We know from the trailer, which I forgot that we even saw a trailer until I was kind of putting this rundown together. I was like, oh yeah, we did know a little bit about this. We know that the 2 of them are going to be going to Mandalore, the planet that spawned, Mandalorians in general.
Go figure.
And we know that not all of them follow the same strict code that he does in the not taking off the helmet stuff, but he does. And he also is the owner of the Darksaber currently, which means he is the rightful ruler of the people of Mandalore. Does he want it? No. Who does? Bo-Katan Kryze, who was very clear that she wanted it at the end of Mando season 2. and I'm sure there's going to be some conflict there, because you can only take the Darksaber in battle by defeating somebody in battle. So
And we saw
they're either going to have
shots
to
in
figure
that
something out. They're
in that trailer. We saw shots of Bo-Katan sitting on a throne of some sort
thrown.
with
Yeah.
you can only assume that being part of the conflict with Din. So that's going to be interesting. And Katie Sackhoff is amazing in that role. Awesome to see they use, again, rehashing, but awesome to see they use the voice actor for the role in live action.
I love when they do that. I love when they can do that. So yeah, either they're going to have to find a loophole in that Darksaber lore, or Bo-Katan is going to have to, or is going to want to fight Mando for the owner of that Darksaber, and seemingly that's at least the starting point for the series. Who knows where it's going to end up? But I'm very excited for it to come back, especially after Andor was so good and so different. It kind of really, it was a way that like gave me more Star Wars, but not made me like, now I gotta watch another Star Wars show, because it was so different. It was such a left turn. Now I'm ready to go back to more like poppy, fun blasters and lightsabers. Star Wars. Tim Meadows and Christopher Lloyd also joining the cast for undisclosed roles in season 3 of Mandalorian. So, I don't know what that is, but I think for some reason Christopher Lloyd makes a ton of sense to me being in this show. I don't know what it is. Like, if you told me he was going to be in like Last Jedi, I'd be like, what? That doesn't make sense. But for some reason, Mandalorian, I was like, yeah, bring me Christopher Lloyd. He sounds great.
Meanwhile, Tim Meadows doesn't make any sense to me. Like,
I mean, who knows? It could be a voice. It could be a stormtrooper.
Oh,
Like,
it could
really
be
know.
awesome.
Man,
It's just my brain always goes to like what was, oh god, was it Ladies Man? The old SNL skit.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Like my Tim Meadows automatically goes back to the old SNL days. So
yeah.
Needless
I
to
agree.
say.
I don't know what he's gonna do, but they've used like Horatio Sands has been in Mandalorian a few times. Like
true.
there's been other comedic actors that have done well. In I'm blanking on her name. Plays that recurring character on Tatooine, the Fix-It Lee. Amy Sedaris.
Amy Sedaris, yep. And Paul Sun
so like they've definitely like
Paul Sun Young Lee from Kim's Convenience. He's one of the X-Wing pilots.
Yeah. Right, exactly. And I think that probably has to do with Jon Favreau being a director of comedies and knowing comedic people. Amy Sedaris was in Elf, which is directed by Jon Favreau.
Right.
So he may have a connection. He may have an understanding of comedic actors that have the chops to do something a little more serious. Or he just wants somebody funny. It could be a role. Tim Meadows could be doing something like Amy Sedaris' character.
Right.
Where it needs to be a little bit funny. And she's a little bit of a wacko. But
so are we going to see like Jeremy Piven and David Spade show up in Mandalorian now from PCU? Going like,
I would love a PCU reunion.
That would be amazing.
But in Star Wars. That would be great.
Oh, and you know what? P-Funk just fits right in. You don't even have to. There's no makeup involved.
They already got the outfits.
Right. The Parliament Funkadelic is ready to rock.
Yeah. They could shoot part of season 3 on like a stage set for Parliament Funkadelic. It'd be great. Got the spaceships.
Yeah, exactly.
Great point. So moving from a show where you see Pedro Pascal only rarely, and he's usually wearing a mask, to a show where you will see him all the time without a mask on. In the world of miscellaneous news, we got a full trailer for HBO Max's The Last of Us adaptation. We had gotten a teaser a few weeks ago, or a month or two ago. There's a full trailer for The Last of Us, which is coming out January 15th on HBO Max, based on the video game, the critically acclaimed video game that I have played.
Yep. I played the first. I never played the second.
I haven't played the second one either. I need to get it. I need to get it and play it. But my hesitancy to get the second one and play it is the same hesitancy I have about watching this show. The video game is terrifying. Like, Steve,
Yeah.
it's really
Yeah.
scary. It's really scary.
I didn't think I could
It-
be scared by, well, no, Descent back in the day, but like it takes a lot for a video game to be scary, and that did it.
Yeah. It took me a long time to
Shit,
get
it takes a
through the
lot
video
for
game
you to be scared from anything too.
because
in
there
general.
were I don't know about that. There were levels in this game that I was so scared of that I would try it, and if I didn't complete it, I would just turn everything off and wait 2 days.
Take
to try
a
it again.
break.
I was like, I can't go back to it. It's too much.
No,
Same as-
I mean in
I've been in
general,
the-
like in
I've-
media, you enjoy the scarier ends of media for the most part.
I do. Yeah, I like horror movies, but I don't like being in one. And when a
Right.
game makes me feel like I'm in it,
And
I'm
it really
terrified.
does.
I've been in the beginning of a video game called Alien Isolation for like 5 years. And every time I play it, I'm terrified. And I can't go back to it because I'm
Yeah.
just like, do I want to play the game tonight? No, because I'd rather not just be sitting here terrified on my couch that I'm going to get murdered
Mm-hmm.
by an alien. So that was the same with The Last of Us, although I will also tell you, and I'm not the first one to say this, The Last of Us is the greatest story in a video game that I've ever experienced ever. It's the best storytelling in a video game
I will
ever,
also
which
agree
is
with
what makes me want to play the second one
that. Right.
because I feel like I'm sure it's the same. And this trailer looks great. I told my wife it was weird hearing Pedro Pascal's voice so much and having it not come from underneath a Mandalorian helmet at this point. At this point, I've seen him more. I've heard his voice more as the Mandalorian than I have seen him in. I've seen his face in stuff. Like he was in Game of Thrones for like 3 episodes or something.
Right.
But just like hearing his voice in this trailer, I was like, yeah, he should be wearing a Mandalorian helmet while he's saying those things. It's not coming out
Did
of
you
the
ever
right
see Narcos?
thing. No, I haven't.
That
He's in
would
right?
have gotten you more used to it too.
Okay.
The for me, it's going to be weird too. Like Joel and Ellie not being Joel and Ellie, sort of.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Yeah, because they don't sound like themselves. They're just,
right.
yeah.
So we'll see where it goes. But I think there's a lot of promise.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like it's shot incredibly well. There's some cool,
Yeah.
wide shots of landscapes. I guess I don't know what they're planning, but from what I remember from the game, it seems like this show covers a lot of the game, a lot of it.
Yeah.
I could be wrong. So like, are they not going for a season 2, or is season 2 just going to be game number 2?
Yeah,
I don't know. Whatever. We'll have to see what happens, I guess. But it seems like they're maybe doing the entire first game, but I could be wrong. Who knows?
I still I forgot that Robbie Reyes himself, Gabriel Luna, is playing Tommy.
Oh yeah, that's right. I forgot that too.
Nick Offerman's
So
in
we
it.
shall see. What's that? Who's in it?
Nick Offerman.
I know. Yeah, he's in the trailer. He looks
Yeah.
weird. A non-comedic role assumingly a non-comedic role. It doesn't seem
Right.
like a very funny show. There was one moment of levity in the trailer where Ellie pretends that she starts turning into a zombie and then realizes it's not funny. I should
Right.
stop. So yeah, January 15th comes out sooner than I thought. I didn't think it was that soon, but here we are. Gonna be rolling right into that from Doom Patrol that comes out January 8th. This
Oh, there you go.
coming Thursday, I believe. So I'll be excited to watch that. I think I said last week, but unfortunately Steve's not caught up on Doom Patrol, so we can't do a week by week review of it, but I'm sure that I will be mentioning it because I plan to watch it right as it's coming out because it's great. Also watching Titans while we're talking about this kind of stuff. I should say that I am watching Titans, and it's fine. I gotta say, like, the writing on that show is not the best. It's still cool that they're, making a Titans show. That has not been lost on me.
Right.
I feel like this. Here's the thing. The story is good. The dialogue is not. That's the
Mhm.
difference. The story that they're telling is good. The dialogue between characters is like, it doesn't make sense. It's bad writing. So macro level, great. Micro level, not great. Doom Patrol
as
continues
Star
to
Wars
be
fans,
excellent.
do we ever know anything about that?
Yeah, I know. It's great. We saw 3 prequel movies that were the same, exactly the same scenario. So, anyway, moving into comics this week at your local comic book store, you can look forward to picking up Avengers 63, Batman number 130. By the way, Steve, I still need that book from you. You bought me a Batman book that I don't have.
And I've seen you like
I
5
should have asked
times
you to
since
bring
I
it. I
bought
saw you earlier today. I should have asked you to bring it.
Yeah.
I didn't.
Well, you will
Smart.
actually be at my house next weekend, so grab it then.
I will.
I think so.
Oh, we'll talk about that later.
Yeah.
Because I don't know what you're talking about. So, all right. Batman 130, Blood-Stained Teeth number 7, Captain Marvel number 44, Daredevil number 6, Dark Web number 1, Fantastic Four number 2, Gargoyles number 1. This is the comic book canonical continuation of the 90s animated show Gargoyles. So if you are nostalgic for that, get your ass to a comic book store this week and pick up Gargoyles number 1. Godzilla, Monsters and Protectors, number 3. Immortal Xmen, number 9. Know Your Station, number 1. Magic the Gathering, number 21. Miles Morales, Spider-Man gets a new number 1. Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur get a new number 1. Poison Ivy, number 7. A new arc starts with Poison Ivy. I think Poison Ivy was only supposed to be 6 issues.
Yeah. They must
And I think it was so well received that they extended it. I think they're getting another 6 at least. So that's cool because I read all 6 and I thought it was great. Very excited about it. And it looking like we might get a little bit of Harley Quinn in the next arc. So here we go. Spider-Man number 3, Star Wars Hidden Empire number 2, Thor number 29, Tiger Division number 2, X-Force 35, and Extreme X-Men number 1. Getting a new number 1 for Extreme X-Men, a title that was around in the early 2000s, which I read at least one run of and thought it was great. So I don't know what they're doing with Extreme X-Men nowadays, but maybe I'll find out sooner than later.
Extreme
Steve.
X-Men may be the most 90s name for a comic ever.
I know, yeah. And I don't think it was the 90s. I think it was like mid-2000s. But, you know, there's a little bit of hangover there.
Oh, yeah.
Steve, is there anything that you're reading currently or anything that you're planning to pick up from this list or otherwise?
Oh, God, what was I reading? Still going on the Ta-Nehisi Coates Black Panther run.
Nice.
I was reading a floppy of something that was really, really good, and I can't remember what. I'm sure it was great, and this makes for awesome podcast. I'm curious what and why and how they're doing with Dark Web, which apparently is Ben Reilly as Chasm teaming up with Madeline Pryor.
Whoa.
So
that's something I did not know.
Yeah, when I saw that, I was like,
Madeline Pryor.
I don't know whether this is a thing or what.
That's wild. Madeline Pryor. I thought she was dead.
She probably has been a couple times.
I'm sure she has been.
I mean, those
who hasn't really?
Those clones have got to stick together, man.
Yeah, that's right. We're talking X-Men. I mean, who hasn't been dead?
Right.
Has Storm ever died? Beast? Has Beast ever died?
If not, he should very soon. Long story on your.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, modern Beast is it's its own animal.
Okay.
There's some
Steve coming out anti-Beast. Who knew?
Hank McCoy is not the Hank McCoy of old right now. Let's put it that way.
Oh, okay. Looking forward to hearing more about that after we were done recording because I don't know anything about that. I don't think Storm has ever died. She's the first person that came into my head as someone that has never died, and an X-Men that has never died.
Right.
So X-Men die all the time,
Kitty.
I think.
Yeah, I feel like, well, and especially now with the resurrection protocols and that.
Oh, so, yeah, I know. Now nobody can die.
Right. Well, now we're back to being able to die, I think.
Oh,
or on our way there, so.
Okay. I mean, I do like that they just kind of put it right out on Front Street. Like, yeah, we know. We're all coming back. Let's just make it part of canon that when you die, we're going to bring you back.
Right.
So you don't have to go through some, like, 6th issue event in order to return to life. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Yeah.
I know Darwin doesn't die because, well, he can't.
Well, he can't, except if you're watching X-Men First Class.
Right.
Sure seems like he can.
Yeah. They pick the one mutant that literally can't die to die.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that movie. That's one of the best X-Men movies, I think.
Yeah.
But they even say in that movie about how he can adapt to literally anything. And then he's like the first one that dies. I'm like, wait a second. I'm pretty sure you just told me
Didn't you just set
could
this
figure
up?
out a way to survive this. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like movie. You told me that movie. And you're also telling me that he just died. That doesn't make any sense at all.
Right. This is not one of those
But-
like push up the glasses moments of like, well, he can't actually die because of it's like, no, you
Right,
told me
exactly.
that.
Yeah.
Like, you
You're
literally
not ignoring
said it.
canon. I'm paying attention to what you told me.
Read
like
the subtitles.
10 minutes ago.
Yeah. Read the subtitles. It says this guy can't die. Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah. Oh, he's dead. Great. Okay. Cool. But that's one of the best X-Men movies, I think.
Yeah.
All right. I'm finally caught up on Superman Son of Kal-El. I'm finally caught up on I'm not quite caught up on Nightwing. I think I'm still one behind on Nightwing, but getting my Tom Taylors up and out of the way. Especially Superman Son of Kal-El is ending pretty soon, so that'll be one more off my list. And I know
There you
we
go.
were talking earlier how I'm starting to try to transition. I used to be a collected edition graphic novel only.
Mhm.
Then I fell down the rabbit hole of single issues. I have not been able to climb out of. And I'm not saying I can completely climb out of it, but I'm going to try to climb out of it a little bit. So I'm getting less single issues and more trade paperbacks. So we'll see
Yoda.
how successful I am at that.
That's the floppy I was reading. The new Yoda
What's that?
run. The number one from the new Yoda run.
Oh, yeah.
Kevin
Yoda
Scott.
just picked up.
Yeah.
How was it?
Good. Yeah.
Yeah? All right, cool,
You know,
cool.
the standard one issue on a mini where it's just like, here's your setup. Enjoy.
Yeah. Oh, I think I looked through that at a comic book store now that I'm thinking about it. Didn't it start with like him talking to somebody via the Force, but they never told you who it was?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Interesting. Let me know if you find out who it is. I want to know.
Sounds good.
Cool. All right, we got a couple one-shots. 2 one-shots that we're going to wrap this up because we're getting pretty late here. Steve, you want to kick off this first one-shot?
Sure. In deals that involve extremely large creatures, Sony has made a deal with Legendary Entertainment. Legendary is the company behind Dune and the Godzilla, Kong, Monsterverse stuff.
Yeah, and a bunch of other stuff, but for our purposes.
Yeah, so apparently they got pissed off at the HBO Max day and date release that
Yeah, they
Warner
sure
Brothers
did.
did, and has fully cut ties with Warner Brothers in favor of Sony, which kind of sucks for everybody else. Like,
Yeah, yeah, I think it does. Yeah, I think Legendary, Christopher Nolan, the director, was very outspoken about that decision.
Yeah.
To go day and date with theatrical versus streaming. I loved it. I gotta say, as a consumer that was not comfortable going to the movies that year.
Oh, yeah,
I was very
100%.
happy that I got to sit home and watch Dune.
I was going to say, I probably
Um,
still wouldn't have seen Dune if it wasn't for that.
Yeah, same. Yeah, Godzilla versus Kong, same
Yep.
thing. Like that's a dumb, fun movie, but I wasn't gonna pay to go see that necessarily. I mean, maybe I will the sequel, but I don't know. And Christopher Nolan, like I think all of his movies are through Legendary. I think he has a big tie with
Oh,
Legendary.
really?
All the Dark Knight movies I think are Legendary. So
Gotcha.
I think he was a kind of a big voice in saying, giving the Warner Brothers the old, fuck you, and getting out of there. So I guess we'll see. I think from what I think Dune 2 is still going to be coming out via Warner Brothers because that was like established ahead of time. But now whatever Godzilla versus Kong sequel that we've already heard about, they're making a Kong and Godzilla sequel. That's not going to be on HBO Max. It's going to be somewhere else, I guess. We'll see. Because Sony is like a big studio. Sony's like the biggest studio that doesn't have its own streaming service. There's no Sony Plus or anything,
Right.
They still farm out their stuff to Netflix and other
Word.
stuff. So
Well, that's because I was trying to
Kinda-
watch that second. Yeah, I think they have something with like stars, maybe.
ugh. come on.
Yeah.
Just get rid of those premium cable stars, epics. No one watches that shit. You're not going to make any money. Come on. Wise up, Hollywood. Anyway, our next and final one shot was something pretty cool. There's a cool image that came out this week of something that we would have seen if Sam Raimi was able to make his Spider-Man 4. Spider-Man 4 was already in production when Sony decided to cancel it, or I think Sam Raimi decided he didn't want to do it or something, because I think it was that thing where Sony owns the rights to Spider-Man and they had to be in production on a Spider-Man movie, or they had to release a Spider-Man movie in a certain time in order to keep the rights.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like a super tight thing. And Sam Raimi was like, I don't want to do that. I don't want to, it's too much. It's too soon.
Right. I can't rush
So they
it and
canceled
make a
it.
good movie like that.
Yeah. Right. Sam Raimi was going to make Spider-Man 4 with Tobey Maguire, and they were going to continue that timeline. But they couldn't see eye to eye on a release date or a schedule or anything, so he ended up stepping away, and they went with Mark Webb and ended up making the Andrew Garfield Amazing Spider-Man. But Spider-Man 4 was in development, and the movie, this was either heavily rumored, or I don't know if it was ever confirmed, but John Malkovich was going to play the Vulture, which, we know the Vulture now is Michael Keaton. I don't know. The comic book Vulture kind of looks a little bit more like John Malkovich, I think. Like a little bit older, bald,
Yeah.
that kind of thing. And I love Keaton's Vulture. I thought was incredible. Homecoming is one of my favorite Spider-Man movies. But no one, in the early 2000s, I think everyone still looked at Michael Keaton as Batman, and no one thought that he would ever play another comic book thing at all.
Right.
So it was going to John Malkovich. Comic book writer and artist Ken Penders apparently got to visit the set or the behind the scenes while they were making stuff for Sam Raimi's Spider-Man 4, and took a picture of a designer wearing at least one of Vulture's wings, and it was a practical prop of a giant metal wing or something coming off this dude's arm, and it looked awesome. Like I say, it looked really cool. So if you're interested in what may have been, you can go check that out. It's all over, nerd Twitter and online and that kind of stuff. So you can check out Ken Penders on Twitter. He posted the original image. So that's cool. Steve, do you think Spider-Man 4 would have been good? Because Spider-Man 3 was not.
Yeah. I don't know if Raimi was able to go back and say, see, I told you so, then maybe. But at that point in time, I don't know how much power he had over what Sony was telling him to do versus what he had to do. So. Yeah,
because he was forced to put Venom in Spider-Man 3.
Right, when that whole thing should have been its own movie.
Yeah, I think that was a big reason why Spider-Man 3 sucked. Because he was forced to kind of do too much. They should have introduced the symbiote in Spider-Man 3 and then made the Spider-Man 4 should have been Venom if they wanted to do it right.
Oh, yeah.
I remember reading that they were going to introduce the character Felicia Hardy.
Oh, really?
I'm trying to bring up memories of things that I read on Wikipedia in 2004. So, but I remember reading about John Malkovich. I remember that they wanted to introduce Felicia Hardy, Black Cat. Oh no, sorry, they wanted to introduce Felicia Hardy, and I think that it may have been Anne Hathaway.
Oh,
that was going to be Felicia Hardy, but instead, this is not confirmed. This is a memory again from 20 years ago.
Right.
That Felicia Hardy would not have become Black Cat. She would have become a female version of the Vulture called Vulturess, which I think is stupid.
Yeah, no.
So I think John Malkovich would have been a great Vulture.
Being Adrian Toomes.
Yeah. But I don't know. That's all I got. That's all I got, Steve. You got anything else?
No, I'm good here. I'd say
I'm trying to think if I watched anything worth talking about, or I don't know, nothing really nerdy that's new? I mentioned Titans already. I don't know. I'm good to go, I think, if you are.
Yeah, I'm great. I'd say
Cool.
I'd say we can, wrap this thing up. If you're listening on or watching on Twitch, feel free to follow us. Watching on YouTube, subscribe, like, turn on notifications. Otherwise, reach out to us at themultiverseport.com, multiverseport@gmail.com. Multiverse Report on Twitter, well, Multiverse RPT there, Multiverse Report on any of the other socials. Feel free to leave us a review, really helps us out. If you're on a podcatcher, it's almost midnight. Give me some slack here.
I know,
and,
jeez, so tired.
Yeah, try and reach out. We'll hit you up.
Yeah, thanks so much for watching or listening. And until next time, we'll see you in the multiverse.